The Wildcat 91.9 is happy to present the Conscience of Kansas radio show.
Kansas State Democrats, this is Barack Obama. Now look, I understand that you're probably still hungover from the weekend, but that's no reason to take it out on this show. Go out and do something for your neighbor. Fill his tires with air. I've learned that filling tires with air is important. You know, if tires don't have any air in them, you're not going to get as good a gas mileage. And they also make that ka-wonk, ka-wonk, ka-wonk sound, you know, when you're, and eventually they burn up and fall off your car. You've probably seen one of those on the side of the road where some fool had a flat tire and just kept driving. So don't do that. Help somebody out, you know, help a child to cross the road. Don't forget to change your baby's diaper. You could do that.
Knocking the liberal out of Tuesday every week at 5 o'clock. The Conscience of Kansas with Paul A. Ibbetson on the Wildcat 91.9. It's where America meets.
Oh, well, everybody's heard about the bird. Bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, a bird, bird, bird. Well, a bird is a winner. Well, a bird, bird. The bird's a winner. Well, don't you know?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Conscience of Kansas radio program with a friendly wave to the bay window here at Kansas State University. I welcome you all back to the show. We'd like to thank those folks that listen live to the Conscience of Kansas radio program via the internet. Folks that go to www.wildcat919.com, they hit the listen live button, and then bam, they are hooked up to the Conscience of Kansas radio program anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're back with our conversation with Reverend Wayne Perryman. He is a lecturer. He's an author. Very, very interesting insights in really what's going on today. And Reverend Perryman, I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about your video on YouTube. We have it cited up here at IbbetsonUSA.com for folks to listen to. And you really walk through a litany of a history of the Democrat Party. And I, too, came to this realization at one time when I was told that Republicans were always the ones trying to keep the little guy down. You know, they were always trying to keep people from achieving better. And I started looking back, you know, and started with Abraham Lincoln and, you know, the freeing of the slaves, go to the Civil Rights Acts, all these things that you give a very succinct lineage of. And it's like, no, it was the Democrat Party that was behind this. If we look at the eldest statesman of the Democrat Party today, we're looking at Robert Byrd, you know, a former Grand Kleagle of the Ku Klux Klan, for goodness sake. It has really been quite a ruse, in my opinion, that the Democrat Party has ran on people for a very long time.
Well, it's because, Paul, they don't give accurate history in our public schools. Instead of saying Republicans passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, they say Congress passed. And when those civil rights amendments were passed, most of the Democrats had succeeded from the Union, and the people who were in Congress at that time were nothing but Republicans. And so they never want to give the Republicans credit for the legislation that they passed on behalf of African Americans. But long before Abraham Lincoln, you had the abolitionist movement, hundreds of thousands of whites who were fighting on behalf of African Americans, Quakers, Puritans, Pilgrims. I mean, they're from the beginning of this nation, even with George Washington, we know he had slaves, but their attitude was that slavery was wrong. Their mother country, England, said that they could not outlaw slavery because the mother country, England, endorsed slavery, and they would not allow a colony to outlaw slavery. So long before there was ever a Republican Party, there were whites giving their lives, laying down their lives, fighting for the freedom of African Americans. But when we come to the Lincoln era, then we find out that the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment, and the 15th Amendment passed by Republican administrations at great oppositions by the Democratic Party. Then we have the 1866 Civil Rights Act. Republicans passed the 1867 Reconstruction Act, the 1874 Act, the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act, the 1875 Civil Rights Act, coming all the way up through passing not only various laws, but establishing programs, establishing historical black schools. Most of the historical, well, not most, there's a significant number of historical black schools that are named after white Republicans. None are named after the white Democrats, because it was the white Democrats that were killing the teachers, closing down the schools, and burning down the teachers' homes. All the way up through, we look at the Dred Scott decision, a decision by the U.S. Supreme Court that labeled blacks as property and not as people. The Democrats applauded that decision. The Democrats applauded Plessy versus Ferguson. They were opposed to Brown versus Board of Education. The greatest opposition to the 1964 Civil Rights Act was Al Gore Sr. He launched the longest filibuster in U.S. history. It's the largest debated bill in the history of the country, with over 10,000 pages of transcripts. The Democrats' efforts to defeat the 1964 Civil Rights Act. The same thing with the 65 Voting Rights Act and the 1972 Equal Employment Opportunity Act. So for Jimmy Carter, a Democrat, to get up and call someone racist, who belongs to a party that supported slavery, Jim Crow, segregated schools, and every institution that was designed to hold blacks back, this man should not have had the audacity to even open his mouth. And after all of that, the Democrats have refused to issue an apology to blacks.
Well, you know, there's no doubt about it. You know, Jimmy Carter has stepped out several times. He's broken from the unspoken rule of the presidents before him and the presidents after him to basically try to stay out of politics unless you're asked to come help in some humanitarian way. And he's constantly injecting rhetoric that is volatile and is purposeful to cause different kinds of problems. I agree with you totally on that.
And he has the left-wing media, Paul, that's supporting him. The Chris Matthews, the
Keith Olbermann,
all the left-wing media, they love to play Jimmy Carter's statement over and over again. And you notice most of the people who's driving this race issue, surprisingly, is not Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson. It's white left-wing media people that's pushing the race card.
Well, absolutely. And, the Democrat Party, it would behoove them. It would be a character builder if they were to come up and say, no, that's not the case. Now, when we look at Barack Obama, and you bring up the most salient point, Barack Obama should be the poster person to say that race relations have improved. Obviously, the fact that he is president of the United States is a fact that no one can deny, that we have come a tremendous way from the Birmingham, Alabama in the 1950s and 60s. We've come a tremendous way, and so I'm shocked when I see Barack Obama continually coming back to the race card. Well, we're talking about Professor Gates and the incident with the police officer, or in other places. He just appears that he cannot let go of that tool, which I believe is political in nature, to say, well, it might not have been race in this issue or that issue, but race is a problem. It's a real problem. And what are your thoughts on that, and how does that tie into your book?
Well, that's not surprising, Paul. I'm an author of 26 books. Most of them are research books, and most of my time I spend doing research. So I read both of Barack Obama's books, Dreams of My Father and Audacity of Hope. And in Dreams of My Father, Obama appears to be one of the biggest racists. The things he says about white people in his book, and the only thing that I've heard Sean Hannity and Rush Limbaugh refer to the book about is the statement that he said he wanted the white blood expunged from his body. But he refers to whites in the most vulgar terms. He talks about his breakup with his white girlfriend, and it was all about race. And he humiliated this young white girl in front of all of his black friends right there in the midst of Harlem. The things that he says about whites in his book is just atrocious. So it's not surprising to me that Obama would play the race card when it's convenient and make various hints about America being racist, because that was the attitude in his book of Dreams of My